edition of the Hockey Talk Show live on Facebook and YouTube on this Tuesday, January 9th at 6:18 p.m. The killer start times, of course, when you don't have anybody to worry about or networks or bosses. You can start the show at 6:18 on a Tuesday night and not have to worry about a damn thing. Like the post here, Facebook and YouTube. Remember to throw your thumbs up around if you can. And, of course, shoot a comment in there. Let us know where you are listening from so we can tailor make the show towards you. That's the thing. We like to, if we got more Devils fans in there, we got to get the Devils in there. We got more San Jose Sharks fans in here, we'll get the San Jose Sharks fans stories going. So that's how we're rolling here on this Tuesday night. A lot of hockey to talk about, despite the fact that half of the league is on this mandatory 5-day break, and we only had one game in the National Hockey League last night. But there is a ton of hockey to talk about, thanks in particular to the San Jose Sharks, to Joel Quenneville over there in Chicago Blackhawks fans. I don't know how excited you can be going into tonight's game with the fact that Brent Seabrook has been a healthy scratch, I believe, maybe even for the first time in his career, but for the first time in a damn long time. Brent Seabrook not on the ice for the Chicago Blackhawks this evening. He will watch from the press box as a message is being sent. And I don't know if it's being sent to Brent or Brent and the rest of the club, but there is definitely a message in this. And what it is will certainly be determined over the course of the next couple of days, judging by what the Chicago Blackhawks wind up doing. But the fact that you can put number 7 up in the press box for the game tonight is pretty damn surprising to me. That is not a move that I would have made. And I don't know what they're going to prove, what they're trying to accomplish, or what. But Brent Seabrook will not go for the Chicago Blackhawks tonight. Eddie, welcome in on Twitter on the auction block. Is Brent Seabrook on the trade block? Maybe he is, and maybe he isn't. I'm not exactly sure. But I do know that he has an extension. Right? He's got an extension. Here's the weird part. The Blackhawks put Cody Franzen on waivers, and then they scratched Brent Seabrook. It doesn't make a whole bunch of sense to me. Those two moves together don't seem like they were timed out all that well, if you ask me. It doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. By the way, I'm also pretty upset that nobody claimed Cody Franzen. How does this happen in a league where there's like 4 teams at least right now that are desperate for a defenseman? Probably 3 of them are in the Metro Division with the Islanders, Montreal, Toronto. Hell, Montreal needs everything. And everybody let Cody Franzen roll right through waivers and didn't pick him up. I don't understand how Cody Franzen clears waivers. I really don't. It doesn't make any sense to me. He has let me see here, cap hit of $1 million. $1 million. Now, I haven't been watching Cody all that much lately, but Cody's a tremendous, 7th or 8th guy. I mean, I know he hasn't been able to stick. I know he's never, I guess, sort of really reached that plateau that a lot of people thought he was going to, especially in his earlier days with the Nashville Predators. But, I mean, a right-handed shot, he's only 30. You'd think we'd be able to find some space for Cody Franzen. But, no, nobody's interested. To hell with Cody Franzen. To hell with good old number 4. What number was he wearing, by the way, in Nashville? In Chicago. I know he was 4 in Nashville. I don't know, man. I just saw Cody Franzen being scooped up at least. You figure the Islanders are so strapped with defensemen with all their injuries that this would have been a nice little stopgap. Keep them there. Get them into the mix so you don't have to pillage through Bridgeport and a bunch of players that aren't really pulling their weight for you. Again, not going to solve the problems for the Toronto Maple Leafs, not whatsoever. But on the other hand, a nice little stopgap. Maybe he gives you a little something. I mean, something. But no, not one person, not one team decides to step up and pull the trigger on Cody Franzen. I can't believe it. Now, over to Brent Seabrook, and I know this is not the topic of our show here. Worst NHL city to play in. We will certainly get to that. We're going to talk a little bit more about the All-Star game, as the roster for the All-Star game will be announced tomorrow. So we'll speculate on a bunch of that stuff. Nashville pulled the trigger on a couple of signings this afternoon, so we'll talk about that. So no real trades to talk about, but essentially everything else: a signing, waiver clearing, and a healthy scratch. We'll see what happens. Eddie, is the coach sniffing glue over there? Somebody is. Someone's sniffing glue in the Windy City, I'll tell you that much. Brent Seabrook has just started his extension that will see him make almost $7 million, 6.8, which is pretty affordable for Brent Seabrook when you consider what PK Subban and Drew Doughty and Erik Karlsson are expected to be making. It's funny, whoever really seems to sign first always gets the short end of the stick. Like, Connor McDavid is going to make a whole slew a lot more than what Sidney Crosby has made over the course of his career, and that is just basically judged on where they were in their collective bargaining agreements, respectively. But Brent Seabrook is 6.875 this year, next year, and until 2023-24. I don't know if it extends on any more than that. Cap friendly goes only to 23-24. So at least 6 more seasons, paying him $6.875 million. He has a no movement clause. He is not an easy candidate to trade, which to me makes this feel like this is a move that the Chicago Blackhawks are making in order to send a big fat old message to the rest of the organization. Now, we'll hear from Joel Quenneville in a moment. We have a soundbite from him from literally just moments ago on why he decided to grab some headlines this morning. Maybe Joel is upset that Chicago hasn't been the focus of headlines across the hockey world and thought, half the league is off. This will be an easy one. Let me pull some headlines tonight. Let's scratch number 7. To hell with it. Now, tonight, definitely a more busy night in the National Hockey League as opposed to last night where there was only one game. We got Winnipeg and Buffalo tonight at 7. Vancouver, Washington. That's the national game in the States. We have the Blackhawks there in Ottawa for a 7:30 start. Ottawa abysmal. Maybe not a bad idea to scratch one of your best defensemen and one of the best defensemen in the league. Carolina and Tampa Bay, nice little division rivalry there. Florida and St. Louis, Edmonton, Nashville, and Calgary and Minnesota wrap things up. The latest game tonight, 8 o'clock on the eastern side. As we take a look at the standings here, Chicago continues their struggles. 20 wins, 15 losses, 6 overtime losses, 41 games played so far this season. They got 46 points. And they find themselves just 1 point out of the final wild card spot. But the problem is everybody is jumbled up with Anaheim, Minnesota being in front of them, and Colorado having that last spot with 47 points. Is anybody else upset that the Colorado Avalanche are in a playoff spot? Because if you ask me, I'm a little upset about it. Here's a team that traded one of their best players and wound up getting better. It's kind of like Tampa when they traded, not that Brian Boyle was the best player, but Brian Boyle was all right, we're selling off. We're going to be sellers at the trade deadline. And then Tampa went on one of the greatest runs ever that almost got them into the playoffs last season. And this story for Tampa continues to just be extraordinary because they're heading into a point where they're the best team in the league right now, and nobody's even close. By the way, I have to thank one of my coworkers, LSL, for this lovely gift that was given to me for the holidays, which has become my little pen holder here on the desk. This is going to be the official Hockey Talk Show pen desk holder. It is a mug with a hockey that looks like a hockey puck. You can see the ribbing on the side there, and it has a net on it. I don't know why this is a thing, but I think it's one of those things where this is what it. We don't need this as a society, right? But I looked at it and I go, this is an awesome gift. I love it. I think the idea, or at least the instructions were on the box, that you can flick your cookies you can shoot bite-sized cookies into the net, and then they'll fall into your coffee and or milk, and then you can scoop them up and have some nice little milk and cookies in there, or coffee and cookies, or coffee sambuca and cookies, as I like to do. No judging. So thank you for this. This will take its proper spot here. I don't know. Is that even in the shot? Do we have to back that up a little bit to get that in? There you go. It's kind of in the shot. There it is. And it'll be there to hold my sophisticated pencils, of which I never really write anything on. Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that, and a big thank you to her for that. Some early predictions. Jets 6, Sabres deuce. Nah, I definitely could see that. The Winnipeg Jets are good. But the Colorado Avalanche are good, and that upsets me. This upsets me greatly. They are not supposed to be this good. I was getting really used to having zero faith in Nathan McKinnon and Gabriel Landeskog. I thought these guys were busts overall for being, again, in this mold. We have literally been living in this mold of Crosby, Malkin / Taves, Kane. Like, everybody has been going through this. Like, just get those two really great forwards. If you could back it up with a third defenseman, a Duncan Keith, sorry, Seabrook, a Chris Letang, now you're golden. You're in a really good spot. Pull out a really, a good to really good goaltender, and you can compete for a Stanley Cup for 6 to 8 years. That's sort of been the mold of this league coming out of the lockout. And there's, no doubt in my mind that Landeskog McKinnon has been that 1-2 punch for Colorado, especially now that Duchesne is not there. But all along, never really seemed to work out. But it's very rare that you trade such a high-profile player like a Matt Duchesne, and then you actually improve upon in your season. I mean, the Colorado Avalanche, to me, they're one of these teams. I feel about the Colorado Avalanche the way the Canadian media feels about the Vegas Golden Knights. Like, they don't belong. That's how they feel. They're just so upset about Vegas being this good this early, and I sort of feel the same way too. And I think most fans would, because most of us have our teams, unless you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Penguins, you've been a big fat loser for the last 2 seasons. So a lot of us are sitting there watching our teams being built for who knows how long. Toronto is suffering, obviously, a little bit longer than others. The Islanders, the Rangers since 94, the Caps since forever. So there's a lot of teams that are suffering. So we don't really like to see other teams just kind of come in and figure it out. So I get it. But this kind of bums me out a little bit. I mean, this is a team that's literally the island of misfits toys. Blake Como has been a league minimum player. What's he making? 2.4 now? That's been a third line player and then has been there for years. Colin Wilson, okay. Carl Soderberg, Gabriel Landeskog, Nathan McKinnon. But then you look at the rest of their lineup, the Nail Yakupovs and the, Gabriel Borks and all these guys that have never been able to really stick or have an impact anywhere else. And they're sitting here on this team with, essentially no real blueprint or talent or thought put together. And they're sitting there in a playoff spot. Semyon Varlamov and Jonathan Bernier, again, kind of 2 castaways. Semyon Varlamov, maybe not as much. But definitely, not one of those Corey Crawford, on Marc-Andre Fleury type of successful goaltenders. And they're in a playoff spot right now. I mean, if you're Chicago, you got to be scratching your head like, what the hell? If you're Edmonton, you really got to be scratching your head like, how is my team with how we're built not doing better than the Colorado Avalanche? This has got to be upsetting for a lot of teams in the West. I'm upset by it, but I'm not really thrown too much because, you know, I don't think that they're going to stick. I think they're on a nice streak. I think they're having a good run. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. I just don't see this lasting over the course of the long term, and not necessarily predicting an implosion here on the part of the Colorado Avalanche, but I am certainly predicting that between Minnesota, Anaheim, Chicago, and Calgary, somebody's going to get damn hot out of that group of four and overtake Colorado. And not only overtake Colorado, but give Dallas or whoever winds up falling into that top wild card spot in the West a little bit of trouble as well. So that's my thought on that. Off to a good start here on the show. Of course, you can call in at 631-438-1768. Drop some comments in the YouTube and Facebook live chats. We're monitoring those, keeping our eye on everything there. Anything you want to talk about on the show tonight, you want to put a little bit more time into, you want an opinion on, what am I hearing as far as trade rumors? I'm into all of it. Let me know in the comments below. Throw a like on the post, and again, share it around if you can. And if you want to drop your name and where you're listening from or your favorite team, feel free to do that as well, just so I know who's in the room tonight. We got a lot of places to go this evening. Should we stay with Brent Seabrook being scratched? You want to hear from Joel Quenneville? Let's hear from Jumpin' Joel Quenneville on why in the hell he decided to scratch Brent Seabrook tonight. This was surprising for everybody in the league. Let's get his thoughts on that. Actually, I haven't even heard this. Let's get his thoughts here.
Scratching Brent Seabrook seems like a big step on into that process.
Well, we've had 8 defensemen all year. I think 6 of them have all missed games, and it seems like every game when we measure performance and the contributions, it's a lot of guys. A lot of times, some guys aren't deserving when they do sit out, and I think that it was something with Siebes' experience and all that. I just felt that we felt that the other guys were deserving of playing tonight's game, and we think it's a very limited experience for him tonight, and expect him to get back in there. I thought he handled the morning skate, did the approach of how he went into practice and how he practiced and worked at it was what we hoped for, and but it's not easy when you make those kind of decisions, but we got a lot of balance back there, and some guys that are playing well.
You went through it with Sharp a couple of weeks ago too. Is it harder when it's guys of that stature?
Yeah, I think that guys that have had the experience and been a big part of it, and I think that certainly comes into decision.
All right, so there's Joel Quenneville on the move last night, the move for tonight, sitting Brent Seabrook. Never an easy thing to do with the caliber of player that Brent is. I mean, here's the thing. Do I think Joel Quenneville is in danger of losing his job? No, I don't. I don't think you have that much Stanley Cup success. He's bought himself a number of years before he runs out of rope. But on the other hand, I do think that, coaches mishandling players can get fired for that stuff. It's very easy for that to happen, It's a very delicate and fine line. On the one hand, I love the fact that Joel's like, I don't care I don't care if you got an A on your shoulder, if you've got the 3 rings with us, if you're making $6.8 million, if you're having an off game and we got 8D and I got to figure out who the best 6 are, if you don't make it into the best 6, you don't make it into the best 6. So I kind of love that aspect, that old school attitude of like, I'm putting the best team on the ice that I possibly can. And if you're not making it into the mix, sorry. Business, But on the other hand, as we saw with, and this is a bad example, but, Ben McAdoo and the New York Giants sitting Eli Manning, when you're messing with the one of the top core players on your team, you can get fired for that. Any coach can lose their job for that. Now, it would be dumb to sit here and act like Ben McAdoo is equal to Joel Quenneville, because they're not. They are absolutely not whatsoever. But on the other hand, all things considered, like I said, this is, that's just the latest example of this. Coaches could lose their jobs for this. You lose a player, then you lose 2 players. Next thing you know, you've lost the whole locker room. Chicago's in this dogfight right now, in that, outside of the Metro Division being incredibly just competitive. Like, it seems like every single day, 4 out of the 5 teams, 6 teams in the Metro are pulling points, in. So if you're not one of those teams, you're seriously losing ground. The other place where there's like that serious competitive contention is in that Central Division with Winnipeg, St. Louis, Nashville, Dallas, Chicago, and again, like I said, then you have Anaheim and Calgary to consider too, as you're fighting for that wild card spot in the West, as Chicago is doing. It's not an easy thing to do. It is really not an easy thing to do. I mean, they are in this big dogfight. And so I get what you're saying. If you're Joel Quenneville, you got to roll hard with your best top 6. And if number 7 is not in that mix tonight, then fine. But again, don't lose that room, man. Don't lose that room. Because there does come a point where it doesn't matter how many rings you have, you are going to get fired. And again, do I think that Joel is going to get fired this year? No. I don't even think he's going to get fired next year. But, 3 years from now, again, you can do some pretty big harm by pulling off one of these moves. Then again, you can come out looking like a damn genius if, Brent Seabrook goes on a huge run or finally picks up his game and helps contribute on the offensive side. Mark Lazarus on Twitter, at Mark Lazarus, one of the guys who follows the Chicago Blackhawks, tweeting just a couple of hours ago, Brent Seabrook is indeed a healthy scratch tonight. He said Coach Q didn't offer specifics why. Brent Seabrook said, and I quote, "I've just got to be better," is what he told me. End quote. That's tough, man. That's tough. I would think that he would have to offer a little bit more insight, give it a little bit more direction, give it a little bit more. Hey, maybe we should do this, or maybe we should try that, or perhaps this. I want you to shoot more. I want you to move the puck more. I want you to this or that more, so on and so forth. I don't know. A couple other things going on in the league. For the Ranger fans out there, Chris Kreider underwent successful rib section surgery on Sunday. He will be reevaluated in 6 weeks and remains out indefinitely. Cody Franzen clears waivers. We mentioned that briefly. I'm surprised by that. I cannot believe that Cody Franzen cleared waivers. According to John Shannon over at Sportsnet, all seems to be quiet for the Edmonton Oilers. Again, another time where I brought up the example of the New York Giants. The Mara family came out and said, we're not firing Ben McAdoo. He's our guy. And then, a week, 2 weeks later, he was gone. The vote of confidence from ownership or the general manager is the worst thing that can happen for the coach, because all it does is confirm the fact that the complaints have reached a point with management or the front office or ownership to the fact that they have to come down and comment. That point is not a point you want to be at any time. Now, I know there's a bunch of coaches in the National Hockey League that are at that point, but it was really rough for the guys over in Edmonton as far as that goes. Peter Chiarelli had to come out and say Todd is safe and the whole staff is safe. Never a good thing. I'm not saying they're out of the woods, but according to John Shannon, nobody in the front office or ownership, because Peter Chiarelli, even though he was coming out saying everybody's job is safe, Peter Chiarelli's name was being thrown around as he could go too. There's a lot to consider with all of that. But again, you don't want to be getting that vote of confidence from ownership or management. That could be dangerous at times. But again, I think Coach Q is safe. Do I think some teams will be kicking the tires on Brent Seabrook? Of course. Of course. You don't scratch a player the caliber of Seabrook and not have one of the other managers or assistant GMs pick up the phone and shoot a text message over to Chicago. That, of course, is happening. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Despite the fact of talking about Chicago's got 8 defensemen. You know, Jan Rutta, Michael Kempney, I'm probably mispronouncing some of these, Gustav Forsling, Eric Gustafsson, and Jordan Osterley. I don't even know. But they're keeping a lot of these kids up. And the thing is, for me, you know, he's got a no movement. So there's too much involved there. He's got a full no movement till the 21-22 season. Let me see. He must submit a 5-team trade list in 22-23 and a 10-team trade list 23-24. So he can be dumped in his last 2 years, essentially, which is not a bad way to structure a no movement for a club, especially when you're talking about somebody who's going to be in their upper 30s. At that point, he doesn't get traded anywhere unless he's getting dumped to somebody who can just eat the salary. And who wants to sell some jerseys, i.e. an Arizona or something like that. But I just he's got total control over the situation. I don't see Brent Seabrook being traded. I just don't. It would make sense. You know, you have Brent making 6.8. You have Duncan Keith making 5.5. Connor Murphy's making 3.8. It would make sense. It would help Chicago's ongoing cap issues. They're consistently right up against the cap. As they sit right now, they have zero space. So if you're really impressed with your young defenseman and you want to make a move, it would make sense to dump a Brent Seabrook. But again, a guy who has 6 years, $6.8 million with a full no movement clause, those guys rarely get moved during the season. I mean, rarely get moved during the season. And where are you going to trade him to? Winnipeg? Oh, my goodness. So this is this is a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Tabloidy in the National Hockey League today. You know, it's one of the things where, again, everybody complains that I complain that hockey players in interviews, you know, are terrible because they never say a bad thing. So I don't know how this happened. But the San Jose Twitter asked the San Jose Sharks, what's the worst city to play in? And they overwhelmingly came back with Winnipeg. Because it's dark and cold seemed to be their consistent answer. We got some screenshots. Here's Tomas Hertl. I think it's Winnipeg because every time it's so cold and dark there. I don't like it there. Here's Justin Braun, Winnipeg, dark, cold, hotel is a little questionable, internet doesn't work ever. So that's a problem. You got to make sure as a city your internet game is on. You've got to make sure your internet game is on. This brings a little bit of a smile to my face because for years everybody complained about the Nassau Coliseum being the worst place to play. And that's all you heard here. You heard the same thing with the Devils a little bit in Brennan Byrne Arena, but that's all you heard. They can't sign any free agents. Nobody wants to play here. It's a terrible place to play. You know, people used to only see the hotel and the Coliseum, and that was a bad thing. And I think that might be what Winnipeg is getting, that kind of a reputation. But if you have shoddy internet, I can't defend you. I mean, honestly, you better have a good. You gotta have a good. We stream on the internet. How could I not be all behind, you know, good internet? You got to have good internet, damn it. Again, if you're listening to the show or you're just tuning in or you like to watch and you're thinking to yourself, how do I get more of the Hockey Talk Show? Know that we stream. We have a podcast of this show that we're streaming live right now that sits up there forever on TuneIn, iTunes, and Stitcher. And we just added Spotify. So if you got the Spotify playlist going, add the Hockey Talk Show into your mix. Move that in and out with your Justin Timberlakes and your Taylor Swifts. Listen to the Hockey Talk Show now on Spotify. Remember to rate and review. Even if you give us a crummy review, we could care less as long as it's there. We prefer a nice one, but that's fine with us. So remember that you guys can listen to the show via podcast, audio only, on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, and the TuneIn Radio app. HockeyTalkShow.com has all of this information and, of course, links for the NHL shop with exclusive discounts and deals. So this was a pretty big move for the San Jose Sharks to come right out and say. Now, a lot of these things are done like well in advance of the season, like the All-Star break, they'll do these things. Beginning of the season, they'll do these things. Whenever a player comes in, they'll have to do this stuff. But the media days are a big deal. They come in and they answer all the questions. Boxers or briefs. Which cereal do you prefer? And they just sit there and they just answer one question after the other. And they do this all in the beginning of the season. And every time you go to a game, you see a little bit more. Or you see a different topic. So I think this is a pretty good one. But the fact that it got out on Twitter has really caused like quite a bit of a to-do. Like people are upset that, especially the Winnipeg people. Now, I've never been to Winnipeg, but from what I understand, it's a nicer version of Detroit. So I mean, how bad do the Detroit people feel today? You know what I'm saying? How bad are they feeling? Because everywhere you go, everybody's like, oh, Detroit's cool, but kind of depressing. But like Winnipeg is like a cleaner, nicer version and less people die version of Detroit. It's like right there. Taxes are better from what I understand. Like everything is just better in Winnipeg. So if you're Detroit this morning, you got to be feeling pretty bad. They got a brand new arena, though, over there, so I'm sure they're not feeling too guilty about it. But dark and cold seems to be coming back pretty consistently for Winnipeg. There's not much you can do to fix that. Paul Maurice, now I just got this. Paul Maurice responded to this in a press briefing. You want to hear what Paul Maurice said? I have not heard this. I have not heard this whatsoever. But let's bring up Paul Maurice. This is Paul Maurice reacting to the fact that the San Jose Sharks have named Winnipeg as the worst NHL city to play in.
Okay, so I didn't read it, so it's dangerous to comment on the exact. I heard it's cold and dark. Well, that happens in Canada occasionally, pretty regularly every winter. It's dark at night. Yeah, that happens pretty much around the world. I don't think any coach, any player, trainer, referee should ever complain about a day in the National Hockey League. You know, we got a sold-out building. Pretty sure that all goes into hockey-related revenues and everybody cashes their check. The thread count at your hotel isn't right, or your Frappuccino isn't frothed right. I don't even know what a Frappuccino is. But my point being,
Liar.
You got nothing to complain about.
You know what a
pretty good life.
is.
Every day. Every city is a pretty darn good one.
All right, so that's a good, high road class response, making San Jose feel a little stupid there from Paul Maurice. Good for him. Good for him. I like the response there. Every day in the National Hockey League is a good day. We sell out our building every day, and that goes into the hockey-related revenue, so people shouldn't be complaining. Problem is with this stuff is, you got San Jose sitting there, and they're answering these questions, trying to be good sports for their media team or their, Twitter team or whatever it is. They're tongue in cheek and, all right, if I have to pick one, I'll pick Winnipeg, and then the media, and again, I'm part of this too. Maybe not so much here because this is so laid back and fun, but elsewhere, the media takes it and goes, oh, psst, psst, did you hear what San Jose said? San Jose said you guys stink. It's cold and dark here and depressing. What do you and then it becomes a real thing, Again, you go back, you take a look at Justin Braun here. The kid is smiling. The kid's smiling. Like, obviously it's just meant to be fun. And then, it gets like taken all out of context and then you get those media storms, and that's just kind of what happens. Sight unseen though, like I kind of get it. Winnipeg does seem a smidge on the depressing side, although they sell that building out all the time. People must love it. People must love it. If I had to pick the worst place, I always thought that Detroit, because, every time you see Detroit on the news, you think it just looks terrible. Anywhere where it's warm all the time, like even though Arizona stinks, like the players don't even mind playing there because they get to play golf so often. So that one you can't really count all that much. It was depressing to play in New York for the Islanders. I totally get that. Although the area is so beautiful. I mean, really, Long Island is, it's why I picked this place to live. I mean, You can't even compare. Some of the most beautiful beaches in the country, some of the greatest chefs, the world-class entertainment. It's all right here. You know, I mean, sure, you got to deal with an overwhelming sense of attitude, but that comes along with the territory for the most part. God, where else is a bad place to play? You know, Paul Maurice does bring up a good point. All these guys do get treated really well. You know, there is a 300 thread count minimum in most of these hotels. They're all flying private, so they're all doing pretty okay. I wouldn't know, but if you had to rank it, I mean, Winnipeg, Detroit, right? I would put as some pretty bad places to play. You know, Montreal is gorgeous, but the scrutiny there is just endless. I'd put that as a pretty tough place to play. Ottawa, you'd have to put as a pretty damn tough place to play right now. People are complaining a lot about Calgary, too, with the age of the Saddle Dome. Although, from what I understand, Western Canada is gorgeous. You know, Dallas is nice. I mean, there's not really, a lot of the cities are really, really nice places. You know? So, I don't know. I could totally see Winnipeg winding up in the bottom of the list there. I mean, just by default, if you had to pick one, you got to pick one. The Predators went on a signing spree this afternoon, signing Yannick Weber, Matt Irwin, and Anthony Bitetto. Anthony was involved in that big deal for Matt Duchene. Each of them could have become free agents on July 1st. Weber told the Nashville Predators website, "It's always good to know that certain guys are going to go back, and it's something to build on. Our defensive core has been a big part of our success. Being able to stay together definitely helps." Weber, who's 29, signed a 2-year, $1.35 million contract, average hit of $675,000. He's got 3 points, 1 goal, and 2 assists in 25 games this season. Irwin, who's 30, signed a 2-year, $1.35, so same exact amount of money. He's got 7 points. And Bitetto, who's 27, who I think is a Long Island kid, signed a 1-year, $650,000 contract, 3 points, 1 goal, 2 assists in 22 games. Excuse me, no, Bitetto, no, Gerard is who I was thinking of who came over the deal. Bitetto was selected by Nashville. Bitetto said, "This is a championship team. It's a place I want to be, and it was a no-brainer for me to sign here. I am excited for the opportunity." We talked about the NHL All-Star game and the jerseys and the coaches, and we got into that list of, you know, we talked about the jerseys, we talked about the coaches, and we talked about everything essentially but the players. Well, the staff over at NHL.com has assembled a list of who they believe will be named to the All-Star game. So we'll quickly pick through this here as we near closer to NHL All-Star weekend. You can see there Austin Matthews, Vasilevsky on the cover of this thing. Each staff member got a ballot, and they were able to put down players. And there was only a few players that made everyone's ballot. So we'll get into it. From the Atlantic Division, they vote Stamkos, Kucherov, Matthews, Eichel, Barkov, and Brad Marchand. Others receiving votes were Evander Kane, Mark Stone, Patrice Bergeron, Dylan Larkin, Jonathan Huberdeau, Vincent Trocheck, Brendan Gallagher, and that is it. But out of the forwards, you can only pick 6. Stamkos, Kucherov, Matthews, Eichel, Barkov, and Marchand. For the defensemen, Mike Green, Victor Hedman, Eric Carlson, Morgan Riley, Shea Weber, Charlie McAvoy, Keith Yandel missed the call. Goalies for the Atlantic Division would be Vasilevsky and Carey Price. Tuukka Rask also got a vote in there. For the Metro Division, Ovechkin, Giroux, Taylor Hall, John Tavares, Phil Kessel, Sebastian Aho. Others who received votes but missed: Josh Bailey, Sidney Crosby, Jakub Voracek, Anders Lee, Evgeny Malkin, and Teuvo Teravainen. How do we have an all-star game without Evgeny Malkin? I just do not know. And Josh Bailey is having an incredible year. I think he gets voted in this year. John Carlson, Seth Jones, and Shane Gostisbehere on defense. McDonough, Hanifin, Slavin, Letang, Werenski, Shattenkirk, and Butcher miss. Sergei Bobrovsky and Henrik Lundqvist are their goalie picks. Yeah, how do you argue with that? Corey Schneider, Holtby also got votes. Moving over to the Central Division, McKinnon, Blake Wheeler, Patrick Kane, Braden Shen, Tyler Sagan, Eric Stahl, Tarasenko, Scheifele, Ben, Line, all just missing. I feel like you got to put Tarasenko. In, especially before Patrick Kane. I know Patrick Kane is a perennial player, but again, Chicago struggle. PK Subban, Klingberg, Alex Pietrangelo, and Ryan Suter just missed. So Subban, Klingberg, and Pietrangelo on defense. Connor Hellebuyck and Pekka Rinne, on goalie. I'm excited for Connor Hellebuyck. He's really carried Winnipeg this year, and he deserves to be a spotlight in the All-Star game for sure. Wrapping it up in the Pacific Division here, forwards Connor McDavid, Brock Boeser, Jonathan Gaudreau, Anze Kopitar. You say Anze or Anze? I think I go back and forth. William Karlsson for the Vegas Golden Knights, and Jonathan Marchessault. Respect for VGK, 2 members going in there. Big time respect. Others receiving votes: Clayton Keller, Ricard Raquel, Logan Couture, Ryan Getzlaf, and Joe Thornton. On defense, Drew Doughty, Brent Burns, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson go in, with votes going also to Mark Giordano, Alex Goligoski, Cam Fowler, Josh Manson, and Hampus Lindholm. For the goalies, Jonathan Quick and John Gibson, LA and Anaheim. Just missing the Flower, Mike Smith, Malcolm Subban, and Antti Ranta. Want to get into some rumor mill discussion? I think we should. Seems only appropriate as Brent Seabrook has been scratched tonight. There is a lot of buzz out there. From ESPN.com, Rob Volman speculates that Alex Galchenyuk, Mike Hoffman, and Anthony Duclair are the most offensive-minded wingers who could be pursued by playoff contenders. Volman believes that Galchenyuk could reach his full potential as a scorer with a change of scenery. Not exactly going out on the limb there, but stating, honestly, it's a little bit of a risk at this point to state that Alex Galchenyuk has a chance to still make an impact in the National Hockey League. I feel like this kid might be too far gone. I think he's got a lot of off-ice issues and things to worry about and deal with. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about him. He might be a little bit of a risk. Let me see here. The Canadiens need scoring depth, particularly at center. He proposes shipping Galchenyuk to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Let me know what you think of this trade. Galchenyuk to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Alexander Wenberg, who's currently sidelined with a back injury. Wenberg is similar in age, similar in cap hit, both 23, both around 23. $4.9 million cap hit. And could also benefit from playing elsewhere. Sens could use a top 4 defenseman. Volman suggests shipping Hoffman to the San Jose Sharks for Brendan Dillon, noting he was an effective defenseman-minded top 4 option in Dallas and could fill the void left by Mark Mathot departure in last summer's expansion draft. Volman feels the Coyotes could seek low-cost forward assets for Duclair, ideally someone who can contribute at both ends of the ice. He suggests Duclair to the Kings for Trevor Lewis. These are not exciting trades whatsoever, if you ask me. I like Volman. I think Rob Volman's a good dude. I like the fact that out of all the people who speculate on trades, Volman will actually sit there and go, well, maybe these trades will work. Out of all of those, I think Wenberg is the most exciting, and I don't think that you can get him for Alex Galchenyuk. I don't see the benefit for Columbus. To me, Galchenyuk is far bigger of a project. To me, you definitely don't get him one-on-one straight up. You got to add a lot more to that mix to deal with the headache of Alex. By the way, guys, I'm telling you, Alex Galchenyuk is a headache. The substance abuse issues that are alleged are well alleged all over the place. A lot of people know about it, and that's a tough nut to crack. Nobody wants to deal with that or bring that into their dressing room or bring that to their city. You know, Vegas, New York, L.A., you can wipe that all off the map for Galchenyuk. You know, cities where there's easy access to party, it's tough. And then you look at some of the other places where there's nothing to do but drink after the game, and that's tough too. This is a hard thing to take on. He's got a lot of term, he's got a lot of money, and he's got a lot of issues and a lot of skill. But as we've seen here, you know, that really doesn't mean much when you're not contributing. It'll be really, really tough for me to just see Galchenyuk going for something easy. Andy on Facebook, can't count out Chicago until they're out. I am not counting out Chicago. I am not that stupid. I am totally with you on that, Andy. Absolutely, you can't count out Chicago. I like Chicago. I think I like Chicago best out of that mix. Out of the teams that are out of it right now, Calgary, Chicago, Anaheim, and Minnesota. I mean, God, I'm going to take my statement back. I'm going to really think about that. Who do you like? I mean, how do you not fall in love with all four of those teams? They're all four of those teams are built to win Stanley Cups. Anaheim's dealing with their injuries. Minnesota was without Parise for a while. Chicago's just been, I don't know, mentally exhausted from all the years of playing. And by the way, add that with the fact that they've lost and shaved off a lot of their core over the course of the years. Panarin, you know, not having him this year was definitely a bit of an issue for them. I loved Calgary's offseason moves. Everybody agreed that Calgary's offseason moves, picking up Mike Smith, you know, picking up Travis Hamonic were killer moves, but they have been non-existent in the standings. I should say non-existent in the playoff picture, even though they're 1 point out right now. It's still, they've clawed their way to that point. You know, they've never been in a playoff picture for a consistent amount of time so far this season. Let me know in the comments below, who do you guys think is the best out of those four teams? Minnesota, Anaheim, Chicago, or Calgary? I mean, how do you pick one right away? It's so tough. I know who's not the best out of those four teams. Colorado. Again, that's why Colorado has no business being in a playoff picture right now. That's why I'm angry. I don't count Chicago out, though. And I don't think Seabrook goes. I just don't. I think if that's an off-season move that they got to make, that's fine. But I don't think he happens. I don't think he goes before the deadline. No way. No way. Early vote coming in from Minnesota from Eddie V on YouTube. Minnesota's great. I mean, you can't argue with it. You can't argue with any of them. Parise's back in the mix now, right? Isn't he back in the lineup, I think? I think Parise's gotten in there. Thanks for the shares on Facebook and YouTube, by the way. Just hit that share button, man. Throw it out on your profile, on your socials, whatever you're active with. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Throw it around. Make sure people know, your hockey friends know that the Hockey Talk Show is here for you guys. Again, we crawl through it all. Rumors, trades, analysis, stupidity. We get everywhere. We get absolutely everywhere. Let's see. The Tennesseans' Adam Vingan was asked if he sees the Nashville Predators swinging a big move before the deadline. And if so, would it be for a forward or a sixth defender? Vingan doesn't rule out the possibility of the Preds GM David Poile making a move. He believes the Preds are happy with their goaltending and defensive group, but they could use another scoring winger. He lists Evander Kane, Mike Hoffman, and Max Pacioretty as those rumored to be available who could fit that description. Their respective cap hits, however, could mean some roster tinkering and some salary cap maneuvering by the Preds. I think the Preds are definitely going to be one of those teams that are going to be in on buying offense going into the playoffs. We saw how important that was for them last time. We saw how important Ryan Johansson was and how different that team was after they lost Johansson in the playoffs. You need scoring. You need scoring. You need scoring. It's always been their deficiency up there, or down there in Nashville, I should say. Yes, if you can add in Evander Kane for little to nothing, if you can squeeze in a Mike Hoffman, I love it. If you can get Max Pacioretty, you're solid. But again, some cap issues there. They'll have to do some maneuvering. Excuse me. Out of all those guys, I still think Evander Kane is the easiest to go, and I think Evander Kane would fit in quite well with Nashville. I think he would. Chris Nichols cites Sportsnet's NHL insider Elliot Friedman's Monday appearance on the NHL Network discussing possible moves by the Boston Bruins. While reports indicate the Bruins could seek a top 6 winger or a top 4 defenseman, Friedman said they are unwilling to part with their prospects Charlie McAvoy, Brandon Carlo, and that's it. Friedman said the Bruins rejected a pitch last year by a rival club for prospect Trent Frederick. Friedman can see the Bruins attempting to land someone like Vancouver's Thomas Vanek with a late-round draft pick, while the Bruins seek a left-shot defenseman. Friedman notes Matt Grzelcyk has been playing well for them lately. Are the Bruins going to be big buyers coming towards the stretch here? I would imagine they're going to kick some tires. You know, they've really played themselves into. I mean, again, they've had a great 10-game stretch recently, 8-0-2. They have 53 points on the year, tied for points with Toronto, but they have 4 games in hand. 4 games in hand. Boston has really put themselves into a nice position, but they could use a whole hell of a lot of help. You know? Let me see here. Evander was wondering, what do you think the Caps should do? 9 free agents, can't sign them all. You know, Evander, thanks for bringing that up too. It's an interesting proposition. I am fascinated, endlessly fascinated by the Washington Capitals. It is something that I've been looking into for quite some time. What are they going to do? Is this finally the year for them? It would be amazing to me if they had Ovi all this time and were never able to capture a Stanley Cup championship. You know, to me, this is Magic and Bird. I mean, like, you talk about the great rivalries of all time, Knicks and Bulls, you know, just all of it. And you know, whereas Magic and Bird, they split their, you know, winnings up a little bit. Right now, Crosby and Ovechkin, it has gone all to Crosby. I really think now is the time, because Nicholas Backstrom has built his way into a nice little career, and I love Evgeny Kuznetsov. I love this kid. When you look about that series between the Caps and the Islanders and how knockdown, drag out that series was, it was Kuznetsov that could care less how hard the Islanders were coming, and he won that series for them. Like, that kid is special, and I love him. And you got him locked up for a really, really long time. TJ Oshie was a huge misstep, I think. Certainly a great player. Did not deserve the contract that he got. And then you got a lot of these core guys, your Wilsons, your Beagles, right? Your Brett Connollys, although Connolly has one more year left. Lars Eller, I think you could easily let walk, but it's a defenseman that's interesting to me. You got Orpik, Orlov, and Niskanen signed for the next year and beyond. But John Carlson is going to draw a lot of interest. Taylor Chorney is a free agent, and you got a bunch of other free agents. You have a good opportunity here to retool on the fly, and it's not out of the realm of possibility to bring a lot of these cats back. Tom Wilson should definitely come back. He'll be affordable. Jay Beagle is 32. Do you want him back? Is he that tight locker room guy? He's a great centerman. I know the Caps love throwing Beagle out on the face-off, especially late in games, especially in overtime. Beagle just run out there, win a face-off, and go running over the boards, you know, to let, you know, Kuznetsov or Ovi come back or somebody like that. Like, so Beagle's kind of important. Like, how important is he to your team moving forward. I am fascinated by the Washington Capitals. Out of all the teams that can really change their makeup, they're by far one of the more successful teams. They are by far one of those more successful teams. And again, and I'm going to pose this question to you because this makes a difference, all around on decisions that are made both this season and next and beyond. It's all about beating the Tampa Bay Lightning this year. I really feel that way. You can build teams to compete, but you got to get to a point where you're building teams to beat the team. And that team has been Pittsburgh. And that team is still kind of Pittsburgh, even though they're out of a spot right now. Can you figure out Pittsburgh? But more so for me this season, can you figure out Tampa Bay? Because if you want to capture a Stanley Cup final, you've got to go through the Tampa Bay Lightning, I feel. They have a lot of young players. They have a lot to think about. Who do you surround Ovi with? Kuznetsov, you got to give him good players. You can't move away from that TJ Oshie deal. And it doesn't look like they really want to. He's got a no movement clause. He must submit it's a 15 no team trade list that he has already submitted. And that goes down to 10 teams after the 21 to 25 seasons. He has a 10 team instead of a 15. You got that Jakob Vrana. You got a lot. You got a lot of good pieces in Washington. I wouldn't be afraid of the unknown if you're a Caps fan at this point. If you're a Caps fan and you're sitting there and you lose a Lars Eller, a Tom Wilson, and a Jay Beagle, John Carlson, a lot of people are saying is going to be a big time free agent draw in the offseason. So even if you lose John Carlson, don't be upset about it. Because this is a team that for years has been tinkering with their core, which has essentially just been Nicholas Backstrom and Alexander Ovechkin and, Matt Niskanen and, John Carlson, that has essentially been their core and Holtby. But you look at them and, swapping out 4 or 5 guys, what I'm saying is might not be a bad thing for the Caps. Getting that fresh perspective, letting some of those younger guys come in and play some bigger minutes might not be a bad thing for the Caps. Look at Boston. Boston is sort of in that same route where they have really sort of come over that hump of winning a championship. Chara's getting older, all those guys, the goaltenders that they had, Thomas is gone. All right, Tuukka is still there, sure, but they've sort of come over that hill a little bit, and the Charlie McAvoys are coming up. You know what I'm saying? So there's that overturn. Detroit was amazing at doing this all the time. They lost a heck of a lot of great players, and then next thing you know, here came the Zetterbergs and the Datsyuks, and the Lidstrom matured a little bit higher and came up and played even better each and every single year. So I wouldn't be afraid of the change. I wouldn't be afraid of the overturn. To me, when you look at a team that has been consistently knocking on the door for the last 7 years, and the question being consistently asked, is this the year the Caps finally win the Cup? It's not bad to overhaul it a little bit. That's kind of what TJ Oshie was anyway, right? Wasn't TJ just like let's try something different, Let's just go in a little bit of a different direction. Who do you get traded for? 22. What's his name? Who went to St. Louis? Wilson is already at $2 million, and how much will he want? Beagle kills them face-offs. Eller kills penalties into too much. Carlson at $397. What kind of a raise? Grubauer is gone. Tampa is the road to any East team. Oshie is not doing so well. Move to the third line. Kuzi is the best player, maybe. I wonder when he will be their true number 1 center, by the way. Thank you for it. Yeah, no worries, man. Can't wait to shed Orpik and his $5.5 million. He could be somebody who moves in the offseason, But, again, Carl Alsner left. And, look who has come in and played some minutes. Like Orlov, I feel like, has stepped up a little bit this year. Niskanen has solidified himself as this is his team. Again, let's not forget you let 88 go in the expansion draft, and he's killing it over there in Vegas. So change is not necessarily a bad thing. I'd have to what I haven't really done for for the Caps is really get into their minor league system and see who they have. And I know that they don't have a lot of draft picks. I think they have enough. They don't have their own second round going into this season, but they have Florida's, and they have 2/3, and they don't have a 5th. So they have enough to make some moves, especially going into the deadline if they wanted to do something. They'll obviously be buyers if there's an injury that takes place. Outside of that, I don't really know how much you would really want to add to this team. And again, you have Braden Holtby. You have one of the best goaltenders. I mean, I know we talk a lot about Carey Price and, Lundqvist, but Braden Holtby is, to me, honestly, if I had to choose between the three, I'd choose Carey Price. But the only thing that would make me choose Braden over Carey is Braden's never hurt. I mean, Carey Price is hurt. Braden doesn't lose that much time. He plays a good, hard game. I love his size. He's younger than Henrik. So Henrik is third in the conversation by far. But I just, I feel good with Braden Holtby each and every single year. You got to feel great about him. So with Holtby, Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Niskanen, you never have to worry about the Washington Capitals. Like, there's your core. And everybody else you bring in around that will change. I would throw a good amount of money at John Carlson, though. I would try and keep him. The problem is you may not, because the bidding for him will get so insane in the offseason that you'll wind up having to lose him. But I would definitely throw some money his way. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I love his game. I love his game big time. I would cut some of the other guys loose to keep Carlson if I could. Because Niskanen, Carlson, Orlov, that's a great 3. That's a great 3 on D. Especially with Braden Holtby. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, we'll leave it there. Good hour show tonight. Great questions. Evander, thanks so much for joining the conversation. Keith and Andy on Facebook. Eddie holding it down on YouTube as usual. Again, remember to like this post, share it around, let your hockey buddies know that we got some stuff going on here on the Hockey Talk Show. And if you don't like watching or streaming, you like to take it to the gym to listen to your hockey talk, again, tune in, iTunes, Stitcher, and now on Spotify in podcast format. We will see you guys tomorrow. On tomorrow's show, we will break down the all-star rosters. We'll know who's going to be on the team, and we'll break it down, who got in, who didn't get in. So keep your eye out for that announcement, and bring your thoughts and opinions for the next episode of the Hockey Talk Show. Have a great night, everybody.